After 107 long days, Sydney and the rest of the state is now out of lockdown. Dominic Perrottet declared today Freedom Day. Millions of fully vaccinated people hit the shops, the hairdressers and the gym. Many couldn't wait and were out the door right on the stroke of midnight. And tonight, many restaurants and bars are bustling. This is a live look at Darling Harbour. We have reporters across the key locations covering all of the major developments. First, though, to state political reporter Ashley Raper in Sydney. Ashley.
Juanita, Sydney and the state came back to life today after what has been a really tough few months. But in that time too, people have got vaccinated and New South Wales has emerged from lockdown because more than 70% of the adult population is fully vaccinated.
5,
It's not a new year.
3, 2, 1, 0!
But it is a new start for the state. And after 15 weeks of lockdown, there were those who couldn't wait to spring into action. At a minute past midnight, the doors opened to the fully vaccinated.
1 VB, please.
While some opted for a celebratory drink, others caught up on personal maintenance.
It was quite common to see people with hairstyle that you didn't think they could possibly wear.
We have a busy night ahead. We're doing pretty much a 21-hour hair marathon, which is very exciting.
The new Premier started his day with a haircut. So did the opposition leader.
It's good to get rid of the mullet.
With his fresh do, Dominic Perrottet marked the state's reopening with a beer with his ministerial mates.
It is a freedom day, it is. I mean, people are going out for the first time. Businesses are opening up. But that means it needs to be done in a measured and safe way.
There are rules and requirements for customers to check in and prove they're vaccinated. The government wants to incorporate a person's vaccination status in the Service New South Wales app, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah, it will be a two-stage process rather than one stage, but let's not let perfection be the enemy of the good here.
Last week, Dominic Perrottet tweaked the reopening plan to give greater freedoms. And today the Everest horse race was allowed to double its crowd capacity to 10,000, a request that was knocked back under the Berejiklian government.
Although there have been some loosening or bringing forward of some of the easing of restrictions, I don't think it'll have too major an effect on the overall trajectory of opening up and COVID cases in Australia.
There are 496 new cases and 8 more people have died. More than 90% of the adult population have had one dose of the vaccine, 74% have had both. The government has made no secret of the fact that it expects cases will rise with the reopening. Dominic Perrottet insists that under his leadership, his focus remains on the health crisis, but there is greater emphasis on the cost of this lockdown on livelihoods.
We need to open up, we need to get back to the way life was before, and I'm very confident we have the structures in place to ensure we do that safely.
We're supportive of opening up for those that have gotten vaccinated. That was always the promise.
A bipartisan approach for a state to recover and rebuild. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Ashley Raper is still with me. Ashley, the state's now entering this uncharted territory of living with COVID, and there is a lot at stake.
All other states and territories are going to be watching New South Wales very closely as the state becomes the test case for living with COVID. Nobody quite knows how this is going to go, and the Premier has acknowledged that there will be challenges as the state tries to forge this path. This is also happening a week into Dominic Perrottet's leadership, and he has deliberately defined himself as the Freedom Premier. One of the first things he did as Premier was add more freedoms to the reopening plan. And despite his stated concerns for the health of the community, it's clear his focus is on the economy, and tomorrow he will unveil a financial recovery plan. The Premier must also contend with the fact that while certainly there are people so happy to be out of lockdown and enjoying these new freedoms, there are some who are very uneasy about reopening and believe that this plan is going too far. So there is a lot riding on this for the Premier, Juanita, and a lot at stake for the state.
Ashley Raper reporting there. The Premier was determined that Sydney would reopen as one city. Those who lived under the harshest lockdown restrictions in the city's Greater West now have the same freedoms as everyone else.
Loved ones reunite, but COVID is still never far away.
We're not meant to have hugs.
97-year-old Barbara Olive and her daughter Judy Christian are face-to-face again for the first time in 4 months.
It was very hard, very hard.
Great to see you.
Jen and Peter Blacklock have been married for 68 years. Separation has been painful.
It was very lonely. I sort of turned to talk to him and he's not there.
People in southwest and Western Sydney are among those who have suffered the most.
It is just so good to get out and sit down and see people.
It's a bit of a highlight for us. We're very good, close old friends.
Around 12 local government areas had the harshest restrictions.
We had 106 days of pure hell, to be honest. Businesses shut, people stuck at home.
But they're now together again. Prayers have been answered.
Members of our community and others, they were going for vaccination and they did it very frequently, and now we are very much safe now.
And many were ready to open their wallets as midnight struck. A tale of two cities no longer, with haircuts with Joe the stylist in the east.
Back on the tools.
And with Joe the barber in the southwest.
Walk in looking like a mutt and I walk out looking like a poodle.
And that longed trip to the beauty salon, worth the pain and the wait.
It's good to be back in the business. Time has been really challenging.
For millions of people across Sydney's Greater West, today is a day to celebrate. And while infections are trending down, health officials are still worried about the rate of new cases in some areas.
The Canterbury Bankstown area and some of those areas in Western Sydney are a focus, and we'll still continue to monitor that. I don't want a tale of two cities. I want our city to open up as one.
For all those ready to roar, it was a day to embrace new freedoms. Rani Hayman, ABC News, Sydney.
Well, many restaurants and other venues are unusually busy for a Monday night as Sydney wakes up from its COVID slumber. We have our reporters out and about. First to Cayman Gock at the Bankstown Sports Club. Cayman, many regulars couldn't wait to get back there.
Well, Juanita, they've had to wait 15 weeks to sit down and enjoy a meal and have a drink, but looking around, it's certainly wholesome to see people doing just that. It also means that more than 500 staff return to work to serve food and pour beers here at Bankstown Sports Club. I'm told when the doors opened earlier today, the regulars immediately started flowing in. Here are just some of the locals I spoke to earlier today.
So we're very excited. It's going to be just to come and have a coffee is beautiful.
After all this time being locked up in my house, finally being able to come out, it's a wonderful thing.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers all.
Go the Westies, go the Westies.
Have a good day and stay safe.
And people have been quick to snap up tables too. Several bars and restaurants here are fully booked for this weekend. Juanita?
And Cecilia Connell is at King Street Wharf on Sydney Harbour. Cecilia, it's quite a wet night out, but that hasn't stopped people getting a taste of freedom.
Juanita, despite the rain, the atmosphere here at the Bungalow 8 on the King Street Wharf is absolutely electric. There's a real buzz of excitement in the air. The bar's beginning to fill. There's DJs, live music, even a jazz trumpeter. The staff on the door say that the entry process so far is running really smoothly. They've had no issues. They're also really happy just to be back at work after such a long time. Groups are jiving away at the tables. They're singing along to the music as they come together to kick back and celebrate the end of lockdown.
Cecilia Connell and Cayman Gock, thanks so much. For the first time in months, the entire state is one, with all regional areas also out of lockdown. Let's bring in Kelly Fuller in Wollongong. Kelly, the Illawarra is open for the fully vaccinated, but there's still a concern about COVID case numbers there.
Yes, Juanita, for 15 long weeks, Wollongong and the Shell Harbour have been tied to Greater Sydney's lockdown. With case numbers low in July and August, many in the Illawarra felt the restrictions were unfair and unnecessary. But the virus did spread here and affected some of the most vulnerable members of the community. The outbreak left more than 2,000 people infected in the local health district, with 38 new infections recorded today. Elsewhere, there were 82 infections in the Hunter, New England, and 21 on the Central Coast. Regional vaccination rates are continuing to lag behind the rest of the state by around 20%. But many still took the opportunity today to head to their favourite local establishment.
Oh, they're just kissing schooner glasses, licking their plate after their palmies.
Good to be free, for sure.
Managed to get a haircut in this morning as well too, so happy days.
It's so nice to see friends, have a beer.
Happy patrons enjoying their first sweet taste of freedom in 4 long months. Juanita?
Kelly Fuller reporting there from Wollongong. The updated Service New South Wales app, which includes vaccination status, wasn't ready for today's reopening, but it's now being trialled in regional areas and the state government says it will be ready to roll out next Monday.
It's the future of checking in. Vaccination status integrated in the Service New South Wales app, and staff here are the first to trial it.
We're only looking at a handful of our team that have had access to it only very, very recently. But so far it seems relatively seamless.
Up to 500 people are taking part in the trial. It involves clubs, aged care homes and taxis in Lismore, Port Macquarie, Tamworth and Wagga Wagga.
They're not having to search through their wallet or their phone for a different file or something that they've saved, or having to pull out a bit of paper from their purse.
So I think it's a fantastic thing to do for Service New South Wales, and it will help businesses be sure that they have people in their premises that have been double vaccinated.
The state government says several security measures have been built into the app and people's privacy is assured.
We're not maintaining or retaining any information. This is just a visual process where a person will show their app and show that they're double vaccinated.
A new tool to help us fight and live with COVID, and look, it'll take a little while to adjust to.
Existing methods of showing vaccination will remain.
It's not going to replace the options that exist currently, but it is a relatively simple process.
Another tool in the kit as New South Wales opens up. Louisa Rubo, ABC News, Port Macquarie.
As New South Wales begins to live with COVID, other states are watching closely. People here are coming out of lockdown while the state is still recording hundreds of cases a day. Here's ABC data analyst Casey Briggs.
Case numbers in New South Wales are still falling, but at some point, whether it's in the next couple of weeks or later, these numbers will start to grow again. And when that happens, how quickly that happens will depend on a lot of factors. Are people going to keep getting tested and isolated at the same rates they are now if they've got symptoms? And are unvaccinated people going to follow all the rules until December? The number of people being hospitalised with this virus in New South Wales, it's still dropping as well. The peak here has come earlier and it's significantly smaller than the peak that the New South Wales Health Commission modelling suggested. In the next 5 weeks or so, we should be getting to the point where 90% of the New South Wales 16 plus population are double dose vaccinated. And add on top of that, more than 60% of the 12 to 15-year-old age group. And that should go a long way towards pushing these numbers down. The trend lines of people dying with COVID-19 in New South Wales, that has stabilised. One of the measures of success of this strategy will be to drive this number further down towards zero and keep it down there. And that should be possible because the first dose vaccination rate in New South Wales is actually close to exceeding the rate in Denmark. And Denmark is a country that has been recording between 0 and 3 deaths a day right the way back to March. Now, just a month ago, the Danes lifted virtually all of their coronavirus restrictions. It's far more substantial than what New South Wales is doing today, but it could be a case study into the direction that New South Wales is heading.